Hello and welcome back to the Alaska Seminar Series for 2025. My name is Valerie Stimmick Bailey from Valerie and Belize. It's a travel blog all about Alaska travel and travel in the rest of the American West. But you're here for Alaska, I'm here for Alaska, and today I'm talking to Jaime from Skagway. I'm so excited because I was just in Skagway in September of 2024 as part of a cruise. That's a really common way that people visit, but of course, some people also visit on their own, via car, via ferry, all the different ways. We'll talk about that when we get into it. But I'm very excited. So if this is your first seminar, just quick housekeeping. Jamie's going to give us a presentation on Skagway and all you need to know. And then I have some questions that people have submitted in advance. If you're watching the replay, you can ask questions in the comments. Then I can either answer them myself or I can reach out to some folks on the Skagway team to get answers that I don't know personally, but usually between me and Jaime, we cover everything. And I think that just about covers it. So let's jump right in.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thank you, Valerie, for having me and for covering Skagway. This is very exciting. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. I'm coming to you from Skagway, or the place with solid core trees named for the driftwood that washes ashore here. And we're on the traditional lands of the Chilkoot Tlingit people. And this is my hometown. I'm very excited to talk about what there is to see and do here. We're the red star on your map in Southeast Alaska. Our location is also where you would find the head of the Chilkoot Trail. The Chilkoot Trail was created and owned and managed by Tlingit people, and it was the interior trading route for coastal Tlinkits and inland Tlinkits to exchange things like seafood for game meat and hide. Today it's a hiking attraction, and just absolutely beautiful. It's an outdoor museum essentially too, because there's all of these remnants of the gold rush that were left along the trail. And so it's a really incredible experience. The Chilkoot Trail was also the pathway for gold seekers into the Klondike. On August 16th, 1896, gold was discovered by Skookum Jim, George W. Carmack, and Dawson Charlie on Rabbit Creek. That's about 600 miles away from Skagway. And by 1898, word had traveled down south and around the world that gold had been struck, and our population climbed to approximately 10,000. The picture that you see in the shot here is all of the gold seekers making their way up what is called the Golden Staircase. And I really like this little visual aid on the side that just shows you how extreme the change is in elevation for that hike. So today, Skagway is also home to Klondike Gold Rush National Historical Park. And within our community, there are several museums, including a visitor center, Jeff Smith's Parlor, and of course the Chilkoot Trail, like we talked about earlier, which is also a national historical trail. So for those of you who are intrigued by the Gold Rush history, there is all sorts of opportunity to experience many of those stories from the Gold Rush, and all within a really convenient proximity in downtown Skagway. Our historical district is just a couple of blocks wide by a couple of blocks long. And yeah, so very accessible for our visitors. Skagway is also home to the White Pass and Yukon Route, which was built during the Gold Rush. White Pass is a narrow gauge railway, and your journey starts at sea level here in Skagway and goes as far as Carcross, Yukon, about 60 miles away. The railroad is an international historic civil engineering landmark. You might be familiar with some other engineering landmarks that share that same title, such as the Eiffel Tower and the Washington Monument. So it really is captivating to think about how the engineering was attained and how this railroad was built on the extreme terrain that it was built on, 126 years ago. So really incredible. Today, it's one of Alaska's premier shore excursions. Probably its most popular is the Summit excursion, which goes about 20 miles up to the top of our White Pass summit and comes back down. The tour on board is extremely valuable in terms of historical content. Their guides do a wonderful job articulating the history of the railroad during the gold rush. And each one of the tour guides have some liberties to focus on what interests them in the tour. So even if you've done the tour before, chances are you're going to hear some new material on your ride. White Pass and Yukon Route also had some exciting news this year. They ran their first train crew that was all female, including White Pass's very first female train engineer, Lindsay Breen, who just happens to be my sister-in-law. She's there in the high vis vest, and so we're very proud of these ladies, movers and shakers. So what I want to talk to you about mostly today are your resources for planning your trip. And the Skagway Visitor Department has all sorts of amazing resources to help you do that. My favorite is skagway.com, our website, which lists all options for eating and drinking and attractions and lodging. So really, really helpful in terms of planning your trip. If you're not super confident in navigating the internet, there's always a good old-fashioned phone call, and we're happy to take those, especially this time of year when it's a little bit quieter. And of course, our email is listed there too, skagwayinfo@skagway.org. I want to point out our building in the back here. It's AB Hall, and the facade is covered in over 8,000 pieces of driftwood, and a very unique building. So that's on 2nd Avenue, 2nd and Broadway. When you come to Skagway, you can visit us in person as well. Some other great resources on skagway.com include how to navigate our municipal transit system, which we call SMART. You'll see our SMART buses when you get here. They're white with a blue stripe down the side. And our bus stops have sort of matching signage around town. They're white signs with blue lettering for SMART. And you'll also see a map of Skagway. I mentioned earlier that it's pretty accessible. Really what you're seeing is the layout of our valley within, the valley floor. And it's about a mile wide by 2 miles long, what you're looking at. And the blue in this map is the public transportation route. So the SMART bus will pick up from every dock in town. You're either at Ore Dock, Broadway Dock, or Railroad Dock. And they will take you downtown and drop you along that route. And you can be picked up at the SMART stops and taken back to your cruise ship anytime throughout the day. It'll only cost you $3 per person one way, or you can spend $5 per person and ride the SMART bus all day. Either way, pretty affordable, accessible. You can also use the SMART bus to get out to places that are a little farther away from downtown. One of our most popular destinations is the Gold Rush Cemetery and Reed Falls. But if you have to walk out there, it's about 2 miles from the waterfront to the Gold Rush Cemetery. Beautiful walk if you are willing and able to do it. But if you need some help, you can actually call this phone number, the 907-612-0902, and then they can get you a ride out to the Gold Rush Cemetery. Skagway.com has a list of every tour and attraction that Skagway has to offer. So if you are not finding what you want from the shore excursion folks on board the ship, this is another option for you to consider. And you can explore each one of these listings on skagway.com. Everything from ocean raft to dog sledding to zip lining to floating the Dyea. It's all right there for you to explore. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed by all of those listings and maybe not confident in which choice you want to make, Skagway also has a tour broker, and they represent every licensed business license within Skagway. And if you want to give them a call or email them, they can also help you decide which tour is right for you. And their listing is also on skagway.com, M&M Tour Sales Inc. If you don't want to plan an excursion or an experience while you're in Skagway, that's totally understandable. Hiking is an option, and there are many options while you're here. Two of our trails are really accessible from downtown Skagway. One is sort of a waterfront, oceanfront sort of trail. It does meander into the woods, but Yakatania Point and Smuggler's Cove is really pretty traversable, pretty light hiking, and you can make it as long as you want or as short as you want. If you're looking for something more aggressive, the Dyea Lake Trail system is also accessible on the opposite side of the valley. That requires a pretty aggressive hike for about 3/4 of a mile. So if you can imagine being on a stair climber for 3/4 of a mile, that will get you to the top and to Lower Dyea Lake. And once you're there, it's really pretty accessible to get around the lake. And so that's a beautiful option as well. There are options for hiking farther outside of town too. You can couple those with a train ride. One of them is Denver Glacier, shown here in the picture with the little red caboose behind it. That requires train access. And Lawton Glacier, which is further up and also requires that you ride the train to get to it. But Lawton, you can actually walk as far as out onto the glacier and stand on the glacier at Lawton. So those are exciting options too. Skagway.com has many maps, and one of them is our hiking trail map. So if you want to plan ahead and explore all those options, that's a great resource. I'm really excited about this map for another reason too, in that it includes traditional Tlingit place names now. Our visitor department worked with the local tribe, Skagway Traditional Council, to get the translations for those place names and permissions to include those for our visitors. So that's an exciting new addition. Historic downtown Skagway is also an option that doesn't require a lot of planning. You can walk right off the cruise ship and essentially into the downtown corridor. And there's options for shopping, museums, food, drink, gold panning, and there's even a new business next year that offers a trapeze experience. So you'll want to stay tuned on skagway.com listings for more information on that. Again, so many things to do in downtown Skagway. There's parks, playgrounds. This beautiful cedar building is right at the essentially entryway to downtown Skagway. That's a spot where you can get public Wi-Fi. And there's some really neat solar powered audio poles there that will tell you about the artwork that's on the side of that building. There Our there's a great museum on 7th Avenue, our municipal museum, that has all sorts of history, including the gold rush, but also outside of that, World War II history, the construction of the South Klondike Highway history, a lot of Alaska Native art and history in that museum as well. So plenty to do. Right outside of the museum, too, is also access to public Wi-Fi, and there's a new train display out there, too. So walking tours are another option. The Red Onion Madams do a very entertaining job of taking guests through the streets of Skagway from the perspective of working women in the gold rush. So that's a fun one. The Skagway Visitor Department this year worked internally with our departments to create a walking tour that is available from your mobile device, and there's a screenshot of it listed here. This walking tour takes you through Skagway's historic district and to several noteworthy historical sites in Skagway. This walking tour is also available within the pages of our visitor information guide. So if you don't want to use your mobile device, you don't have to. You can pick up one of our visitor guides, either from our visitor center on 2nd Avenue, or you can pre-order one on the website and we'll mail it to you. So that's a fun option. We are working to add audio and several foreign language translations to that mobile option by next year. So fingers crossed that'll be available come 2025. Another thing that doesn't require a whole lot of planning are opportunities to satisfy your sweet tooth while you're in Skagway. Everything from cookies and cupcakes to ice cream and fried bread, several coffee shops, all certainly available to satisfy your sweet tooth. Lots of great food options in Skagway too. Again, you can find information about listings for all of the restaurants on skagway.com under Eat and Drink. Of course, I've got my favorite at every place in town, and the options are vast. We've got 2 fairly new food trucks, one that focuses on Mexican cuisine and the other on Thai food. There's several seafood places in town where you have access to fresh caught goodies such as, halibut ceviche and, shrimp and fish and chips and oysters. Skagway Brewing Company actually has aeroponics right on their restaurant location, at their restaurant location. And so you've got access to greens that were grown right here in Skagway. And they're using byproduct from their brewing process to grow these greens. So not only are they tender and delicious, but environmentally responsible. So many great options for food in Skagway. If you didn't do your research, you can always pop into the visitor center on 2nd Avenue, and we have a couple of displays that have all of the menus for each restaurant, and we can help point you in the right direction. Brews and spirits are an option. Klondike Brewing is right on 2nd Avenue. They've got a beautiful building, and they even have some outdoor seating now, so that's a fun option. Skagway Brewing Company is on 4th Avenue, and it's the biggest restaurant in town. So lots of seating there, and they do an incredible spruce tip ale. So they're using local ingredients for their beer, high in vitamin C content and super cold and delicious. Skagway Spirits is our local distillery. Their establishment is located a little off the beaten path on Alaska Street. So if you want a reason to get out of town and experience their cocktails that also use incredible local ingredients, like the Fireweed Cosmo, then that's an adventure worth seeking out also. There are several establishments in town that also sell some of these brews at their restaurant. For example, Happy Ending Saloon, the Station Bar and Grill, and Wodie's all sell Klondike Brewing. And Skagway Brewing Company has some sister or affiliate restaurants like the Salty Siren that sell their brews at different locations too. So lots of opportunity to taste test while you're here. If you're looking for something further out in nature, Dyea is an incredible option. Many of our attractions and tours include this as part of their tour package. So chances are, if you've secured a hike and float, or if you're going zip lining, this will include a bus ride out to Dyea. But if you're looking to do something independently, there's options for that too. There are electric bikes and scooter rentals available in Skagway. And as long as you're comfortable traversing a 10-mile windy gravel road on one of those transportation devices, then by all means, that's an option for you. I would encourage you to brush up on your bicycle safety and to learn your your hand signals for bicycles before you get out there, because it's a busy road. But certainly that is a fun experience. While you're out there, you should check out the historic Dyea town site. You'll see some false friends from the gold rush and a lot of stuff to read about that historic site while you're out there. Of course, dog sleddings and puppy hugging is an option out there too. And camping, there's campground out there, first come, first served. So that's a fun option also. Another option on the outskirts of town is planning a tour or renting a car or taking a combination tour with the railroad to experience the South Klondike Highway. You can see from the photo here of Emerald Lake that it is a glorious drive. It will take you as far as Whitehorse if you want to make the entire 2-hour drive in a rental car, but most of the combo tours go about as far as Emerald Lake. You'll probably experience car cross in the Yukon also, and just a lot of beautiful sights to see and a lot of ways to do it. So if you're interested in seeing that, make sure your tour packages include the South Klondike Highway. Skagway.com is also a resource to keep track of the special events that are happening in Skagway. So if you want to see what's going on June 7th or July 4th while you're here, this is a great resource for you. Skagway does special events like no other. Our 4th of July is something to experience for sure. We shut down our main street to vehicle traffic, and it essentially becomes a street party where we host events like the egg toss and the pizza toss and the slow bike race and 3-on-3 basketball tournaments. And there's always lots of live music and street food and fare. So just a really, really fun event to be here for. There's several race opportunities, including Skagway Marathon and the Klondike Road Relay, which is actually a race from Skagway, a running race from Skagway to Whitehorse, which is 110 miles away, up the South Klondike Highway in September, with 10-man teams. I've done it a bunch of times, and it is the experience of a lifetime. So that's a fun event to seek out too. We have Garden City markets. Our Skagway Art Council often hosts concerts at what we call Deadman Stage on the outskirts of town. Skagway's been famous for our Pride event the last couple of years. It's hosted in June. So definitely check out our event schedule and see what's happening when you're in Skagway. A couple of things that are new in 2025. Our 2025 visitor guide has just been distributed, and there is an electronic version available on skagway.com. You can also use skagway.com to order a copy, a tangible hard copy of our visitor guide, and we'll mail it to you. I mentioned earlier in 2025, we hope to have audio and some foreign language translations added to the walking tour, which is also accessible through skagway.com. We have 2 new experiences that were advertised in the guide this year. One of them is the Gold Rush Trapeze that will open in 2025, and the other is Skagway Cultural Garden, previously known as the Skagway Sculpture Garden. That's been closed for a number of years, so we're excited to see that reopen, and that will be under Indigenous ownership by the local tribe. Of course, our This is Skagway 2025 video and photo contest will be available starting the first of the year. This is something we do annually, and a lot of the photos that you've seen in this slide deck are from that contest. It's your opportunity to be eligible to win $500 for either the best photo submission or the best video submission, and then Explore Skagway uses those visual assets in our marketing. And so it's a really cool way for you to showcase your work and your experience through the Skagway Visitor Department. I also want to mention Skagway's tourism best management practices. We've been operating this program, this voluntary program, over the last couple of years, so it's fairly new to Skagway. But basically what it is a commitment from our businesses to do their best to operate sustainable and hospitable tourism. And so you can visit Skagway Tourism Best Management Practices website to see a list of our partners. You can also look for this logo, the Skagway TBMP logo. Many of our partner businesses will have those posted in their windows. And so we're proud of our partners that are doing it as best they can to make sure that this place is safe and sustainable for generations to come, generations of visitors and residents alike. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for those partners. It's also a place where you can submit feedback to our tourism best management practices partners. So if you've noticed something that we're doing really, really well, we want to hear about it through that platform. And on the flip side, if we're doing something that can be improved upon, that's an opportunity for us, then we want to hear about that too, right? So while you're planning for your trip to Skagway, I encourage you to visit our social medias, of course, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. It's the best way to stay apprised to what's new and exciting, what's going on in Skagway, and just for you to learn about all the options that are out there. And that's all I have prepared for you today. Again, this is our contact information. Everything's listed on skagway.com, but we're happy to take your phone calls and your emails. Beyond that, I'm available for questions, and just gonna hawa Kwayana, thank you for considering Skagway as your next destination in Alaska, and I hope to see you soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much for going through all of that. I was just thinking while you were talking, and we kind of, if you're watching this, I work with all these destination partners year after year, and so Jamie and I were running through her slides a few days ago, and I was like, every time I do this set of seminars, I end up just wanting to go back to the places. I mean, I've been to many of these places, but I just want to go back. So the trapeze sounds really cool. I'm very excited about the Skagway spirits, which I hadn't heard about, and the cultural garden. So I guess, my bucket list never gets any shorter for Alaska. And I think that's the case for many people, even after their first trip. I did want to ask, so we're going to start Q&A. I did want to ask you, can you share your favorite restaurant? I know you're probably not supposed to like publicly have favorites, but if you're willing to share, I'd love to know.
Well, I am tourism director representing a municipal department where we represent every licensed business in Skagway equally. I will say that there isn't a restaurant in town that I don't have a favorite at. Our community does food preparation so well, and they've all got their amazing dishes. I love the halibut ceviche at Wodie's, the sesame salmon salad at the Brew Co., the fish and chips at the Fish Company, the meat lovers pizza at the station. I definitely have favorites in every restaurant in town, and they all deserve praise for the good work that they do.
That's an awesome way to answer that question.
Yeah,
Because
thanks.
I know when I do these talks and I'm always like, I know you have a personal favorite, but I agree that Skagway's food and drink scene is really awesome. And that's one of the things I love about being there is I pretty much, I'm never going to get through the whole list because every time I come, there's new places that have opened and places I want to return to. So you really can't go wrong if you want to eat or drink in Skagway. And that's something that for anyone who follows me, I'm promoting that all the time, especially if you come via cruise ship. There's nothing to be afraid of in the food in Alaska. It's incredible in all of the ports that you're going to visit. Skagway is definitely one of those destinations. So, step into one of those spots and have an amazing meal. You'll be supporting the local economy as well. Okay, so that's enough of my questions. I have some questions from members of my community. And again, as a reminder, if you're watching the replay, just pop your questions in the comments below. So the first question I have is from Becky, and this is a really good question that I think I get a lot when people are also planning to do the Alaska Railroad at other times during their trip. Do you still recommend the White Pass and Yukon route? Kind of what makes it different, what makes it special compared to the Alaska Railroad? I know my answer, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to hear your answer too. But yeah, I would not skip the White Pass and Yukon route just because you've done or are planning to do that trip on the Alaska Railroad. They're very different. White Pass and Yukon route is a narrow gauge railroad versus a standard gauge. You climb basically 2,000 feet in 20 miles. And so the change in the terrain from where you start at sea level to the top of the summit is incredible. The fact that they've engineered this railroad to traverse the natural environment in the way that it does is mind-blowing. And of course, the history along this route is, it's fascinating. Everything from Dead Horse Gulch, to Black Cross Rock, these are stories that are very compelling and interesting, and it's really a journey to take the White Pass route for all those reasons.
Yeah, and I want to clarify, if you can correct me if I'm incorrect on this, but from when I rode the White Pass and Yukon route the last time, if I remember correctly, the reason that the Chilkoot Trail and the Chilkoot Pass was where the indigenous people and where the prospectors passed through is actually easier to cross that pass than the White Pass. White Pass is more challenging. Am I correct on that?
I guess you'd have to talk to an engineer about that, because I can't imagine the train going up the golden staircase. I'm sure I figured that
there was
out.
Something they said about like maybe the distance or the elevation change, but the point I was trying to make is the fact that the train is able to ascend White Pass is a testament to the engineering, because it was not the preferred path of people who didn't have a train to ride.
Right.
They didn't put the train in Chilkoot on the Chilkoot Trail or Chilkoot Pass for a reason. They put it on White Pass because it was not the commonly used one for sort of foot and animal traffic, but also it was a totally different engineering problem. Anyway, that to me is actually what makes it really special, is that it is a different chapter of Skagway history. It's tied in, of course, to Gold Rush history. Also, the scenery as you like lift up, as you rise up in the valley, is completely different than anything you would see on the Alaska Railroad. Don't get me wrong, the Alaska Railroad has beautiful scenery too, but they're very different. So you're not going to feel like you've seen the same thing because you did the White Pass and you did the Alaska Railroad. Also, if you've already decided you want to ride the train, you probably like trains. And so this is like a bucket list train. I mean, if you talk to train people, the White Pass and Yukon Route is a train you have to ride. So it's definitely still worth doing.
Absolutely. Very good point.
Okay, so next question I have is from Sarah, and she's already sold on the White Pass, so that the White Pass Railway, so that's good. Her question is, what are some good ways to spend the second half of your day? So the White Pass and Yukon Route the kind of summit tends to be sort of a half day ride. What other things would you suggest for people to do?
Well, there are different excursions that you can pick through White Pass Railway, including all-day excursions. So there's those options, or they couple them with other tours where you get off in Fraser, which would require a passport, but where you could then take a bus back down the South Klondike Highway. You just don't have to plan anything at all. Getting off the train in downtown Skagway and just having the freedom to explore, especially on a nice day, is something that's just really easy to do. And you can let the day take you wherever you want to go, you know. The museum on 7th Avenue, I think, is something that more people should experience. It's just a really incredible collection. The Smart Bus goes right by there. So even if it's not a nice day to walk all that, you know, to walk the 7 blocks, then you can hop on the Smart Bus and go check it out. Yeah, and of course the National Park Service and all of their museums in town. I mean, you can just walk, you know, through one of the museums, and a block away is another one. It's just incredible access to the historical information of this place. So those are some great options. And then the food, like, you cannot go wrong with experiencing those in Skagway.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought up the Klondike National Historical Park again, because I did want to throw a little plug in. If you are watching this video and you are planning a cruise, and your cruise is going in or out of Seattle, that there is a companion museum, a companion visitor center in Seattle for the Klondike National Historical Park. And it's because many of the people who came up to Skagway came through Seattle. So if you are going to be going to Seattle, it's kind of a nice bookend to really get the full sense of the journey. Of course, their journey was a very different boat than what you would be riding on when you are doing a cruise, but just kind of a nice additional, pro tip if you're going through Seattle. Okay, let's jump away from cruise travel for a second. I know many people come to Skagway on the cruise, but not everyone. So Tracy was curious if you have tips for if you want to bring your RV to visit Skagway.
Absolutely. South Klondike Highway is the most beautiful drive on the planet. I know I'm a little biased because we're talking about my place, where I've lived my whole life, but it really is an exquisite drive. And Skagway has 4 RV park options, essentially. There's Pullen Creek RV Park and Garden City RV Park, which are paid parks within the city limits here in Skagway. So you could park your RV and walk just about anywhere in Skagway from there. But there's also RV parks out in Dyea, the Park Service RV Park, and our municipal RV park or campground on the Dyea Flats. I would just say that if you were planning on going out to Dyea, you want to make sure that your vehicle is adequate to handle a very narrow dirt road that's often, maybe not maintained to the highest standard if it's been raining or so those Dyea options are probably best suited for for campers or smaller RV type vehicles. But again, Skagway.com is a resource you can use to plan your trip around your RV travel. What I love about people that are experiencing Skagway via RV is that you can opt to spend several days here, and there's so much to do. And that's when you can really take advantage of our events schedule too, and our nightlife, because oftentimes the cruise ships are gone prior to our downtown nightlife sort of kicking off for the evening. So it can be a different experience to travel here by RV. Plus all the hiking adventures you can do, the outlying cabins where you could stay overnight if you're here as an independent traveler. Yeah, Tracy, if you want to plan your trip, call me at the Skagway Visitor Department and I'll help you out.
All right. Okay, here's another pretty interesting question. Rita is planning to visit Alaska. Actually, got some more clarification. She's still narrowing down where she wants to go. So I figured I would just ask all of the destinations to give me advice, because a lot of people who are independent traveling may come up with their dogs. And so does Skagway.com, or do you have any tips for dog-friendly activities? The whole experience of being here with a dog.
Yeah, I think our community is very dog friendly, dog oriented. Our hiking trails, as long as you are able to leash your dog, or if they're, responsive to voice command, then that's a great option. I don't know that any of our Skagway businesses advertise to being pet friendly, but certainly I've seen dogs in some of our outdoor spaces, like Klondike Brewing has an outdoor space. And yeah, certainly our hiking trails are great spaces to take your dogs. Dyea is a dog's haven. Like, you want to take your dog out to Dyea and let them run along the flats and through the water and the tall grass. Like, they're going to be having their best life.
Okay, that's actually a great segue to the last question that I have, which came from Michelle, which is, and I think you covered this, but I want to just go more specifically. What are the options for getting to Dyea? So what I remember Michelle said is she's going to be visiting Skagway. They have an excursion they've already planned, and then they want to go to Dyea on their own. And so I think you said bikes, scooters. Are there any other options for getting out there?
You can call the Smart Bus directly for their number, and they can take you out there. The challenge is, once you get out there, you don't have cell service, so you can't call them to come get you when you're ready to come back. So I would say that probably the electric bikes and the scooters are your best bet if you're here on a cruise and want to do that independently. There's also rental car options, and really just a beautiful, beautiful space to visit. I would be conscientious of the fact that there's a lot of little side roads, and those are all privately owned properties. So I would avoid getting off of the beaten path in that way and stay focused on the Dyea Road and the road out to the flats, just to ensure that you're in the spaces that we intend you to be in. And yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I have actually never been to Dyea when I've been in Skagway, so I did not know that answer. And it's great to remind people that we love getting off the beaten path. We love distributing tourism into different communities and different areas to make it more sustainable, but you may end up without cell service when you do that. So it's best to make sure you've got a really good plan for transportation and logistics if you're going to be doing something like that. Okay, so that's all the questions that I have received in advance of recording this seminar. Again, last reminder, if you have any questions at this point, you could visit skagway.com, because they obviously have an excellent website with lots of information. I have linked that in the show notes, along with some other links that I have for my own travels to Skagway. And you can post questions in the comments, because I keep an eye on those all year, basically. If you're visiting in 2025, I'll be paying attention. Actually, if you're visiting in 2026 and you found this video, I still keep an eye on the comments, and I can get you updated information in the event that anything has changed. I just want to say thank you again to you, Jaime, for joining me, for sharing Skagway, for sharing your passion as a lifelong resident, it's so evident that you love this place that you call home. And I am confident that anyone who chooses to visit will also fall in love with it. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in, and make sure to check the playlist. There's lots of other videos to help you plan your trip.
Thank you, Valerie.